Hello and good afternoon. This is Krasi and AI Pressure Cooker Live. So thank you everyone who is joining the live session today on LinkedIn and YouTube. And just to do a little bit of an intro, what we're going to talk today about, the future of insights. What actually prompted this series to start was this question that I think I find myself quite hard to answer, meaning what is good to ship these days. And that's because, to a large extent, there are new pressure points that product teams, innovation teams, research teams have to address. And there are four that at least stood out for me. The first one, of course, is the value. It is now even more challenging to decide what are the outcomes that customers prioritize. Then comes the capability. Could actually the tech deliver what we promise in terms of our products to provide on the market? Then it comes the influence, which is a big one, and how actually our customers decide and what influence these decisions before our product touches them. And lastly is this notion of new behavior, which are emerging faster than we can learn about that. So this all, to me, kind of collided into this big idea of insights, and more importantly, the future of insights, and what happens when AI can make insights more intelligent. On one hand, I totally love this new capability because for once, companies now cannot ignore anymore the customer truth. But the big question that we have to now answer is, are we ready? And with that in mind, I had the pleasure of knowing Narek, who is the CEO of Pre-Launch. So I thought, who else to talk to about the future of Insight than Narek? So Narek, thank you so much for agreeing, and welcome.
Thanks for having me.
I wanted to tell a little bit about you and Pre-Launch to the audience, for those that don't know, because it's really intriguing what you're doing, at least from my point of view. I know that you were really passionate starting Pre-Launch from this point of view, that you wanted companies to be able to actually test demand before they overinvest in being software products or hardware products. But now with your new product, Frank, what I'm seeing is that you even want to move closer to the customer conversation than before. And I wanted to ask you, what made this urgent for you? Why did you think that from everything that you've seen of all those years working with insights and products and research, what prompted you to think, hold a minute, insights has to change, research has to change?
That's a great question, actually. So I was always passionate about innovation. Like in the past 10 years, all the companies and all the projects that we've been doing, they all are around innovation, right?
Mhm.
And when I was asking companies like, why don't you innovate, more and in more intense, etc., it always come down to the notion that it's risky, we don't have resources, so we can't allow ourselves to spend too much on these risky projects, because innovation is usually comes with the risk, right? So our goal was always to kind of de-risk the innovation, and de-risking the innovation is through viability, through significance of insights, through providing something that people would believe, because that would allow companies to innovate more, bring better products to the markets, invest more confidently into something, knowing that the risks are not that high, and whatever they are building is built on an insight that they can believe on. And this is why we started Pre-Launch, and the Frank recently was the evolution of a bit more of a technological and AI evolution, I would say, something that was not available and possible before. And we understood that now it's the right time to be able to do this.
Great. And I'm super excited to meet Frank soon, hopefully, once I go to IEX in a couple of weeks in Amsterdam. I'm quite excited to see it in real life. But I wanted to ask you this question. Obviously, we have heard a lot of companies throughout the years talking about the quality of insights and complaining that quality is low for various reasons. But from your experience, where is the weakest point? Is it in terms of the questions we're asking? Is it the conversation with customers itself? Or is it the synthesis, how we extract the valuable bits? Or I'm a little biased, but I actually think that the weakest link is in the decision that follows or lack of decision that follows. But I wonder, what is your perspective? Why are we still suffering of low quality insights?
I 100% agree with you. Actually, I think it comes from the linkage to decision making, and it comes even in the prior phase of starting the research or starting the gathering, putting down the study guide, etc. I think basically it starts with what kind of decisions we need, and how these insights would help us make valuable decisions. And if you're wrong in the basis, whatever you do down the line is not gonna give better answers, right? So it definitely starts with the decision in mind, and then retrospectively you need to kind of elaborate on what kind of insights you might need, who are gonna answer to those questions, how to put a study guide, etc., etc. And everywhere can you can do good or bad, depending on how you approach different kind of elements of this process. But I think the biggest problem starts even earlier, not prioritizing the right decisions, and then everything goes wrong. You're getting a bad data, a bad analysis, bad synthesis, and based on that you can't really form type of decisions that you had to.
Mm. And from that point of view, thinking about indeed the importance of the decision component of whatever you're trying to research, do you think that we as consumers suffer from under-researched products or actually badly researched products?
I That's a good question. Actually, I would say badly researched products. So I might be biased in that sense, but now, especially now, we don't have a shortage of data, right? We have access to the data, and the data is flowing in from many sources. And even in small companies, when I'm talking to different kind of stakeholders, teammates, they have very fragmented data sources, and there is no alignment, there is no this coherent approach on the on the customer truth, right? On So someone might be talking to customers and they have their vision, their version of what's right. The CEO might have their kind of gut feeling by talking to investors. Then the customer support might get the complaints all around. So there is not this kind of coherent system of records where everything flows in, and then everybody is very much aligned on what are our priorities, what we need to work on, what are the biggest challenge, why customers are not converting, what are competitors doing better than we are doing, etc. I think if you ask these questions to companies at different size, you would get very different answers. And that's kind of our mission, and this is what we're trying to kind of solve at the end of the day, right? Interview AI is only a way, but at the end of the day it's all about like decision making, it's all about alignment, it's all about having a coherent and clear picture on what is most important thing.
And is this what actually prompted you to think that research should evolve these days and not be any more constrained to a script, but rather turn into an adaptive conversation? Was this prompted from this lack of alignment and coherence as you spoke about?
I would say so, and a couple of other things that triggered this decision. You know, we had pre-launch, and on pre-launch we had this notion where you need to ask the right questions at the right time, because whenever somebody was putting down the reservation deposit, if you would ask the question right at the moment, you would get kind of a bit of a different type of answers compared if you ask it like a week later, right? And
Mhm.
what we were doing, we were inviting those people who would come reserve products on the platform. We would invite them to interviews, Zoom calls, and then we would have professional moderators who would go and ask them various questions, try to get different insights on why they bought or didn't bought this or that product, right? And those interviews were super insightful. We would get a lot of data from these. But then we noticed that the later we ask these questions to people, the low quality data we would get. Because people would try to rationalize, right, why they have
Or
been
change
doing,
their mind.
or change their mind, exactly. But if you would ask like at the same day and right at the moment, you would get great answers, and we would give more weight to those answers which would coming in earlier than later on. But this was absolutely not scalable, because we couldn't have, like, I don't know, 20 moderators who could go and talk to the customers at the same time. We had just a couple, and they had to kind of schedule different calls, and this was hurting the quality of insights. So this was one of the triggers. Another trigger was this multi-language thing, where especially in the global studies, we noticed that people were coming from all over the world, and it's better if you make the conversations in their native languages. And of course, in these days, a lot of people speak English, Spanish, and you could get still some kind of quality, but it was very hard to very quickly have, five moderators who would speak in the native languages of those consumers, and we would conduct these interviews, right? So this was second trigger, I would say. And the third trigger was kind of interesting. We have some products which were a bit of a sensitive category, I would say, right? So they would involve a lot of personal information, a lot of personal triggers, a lot of areas where people are not ready to talk about with strangers. And accumulating all these triggers with the technological development that is happening right now, which is voice AI, which was achieving to a phase where you could already utilize AI to have these human-like conversations, we said, let's not try replacing the moderators, but augment the type of resources and type of insights that were coming in. And we created Frank basically with this in mind, that we could get, uh, in some cases, even better data in a more timely manner, and we could scale it to more customers. And as a result, we could get much richer type of data than we otherwise was getting. So it was mostly to solve our own problem. Then we noticed that many of the customers want these specific features separately. Then it triggered us to separate it and create another kind of platform and product, and we call it Frank. So yeah.
Mhm. And thinking about Frank, what is Frank for you? Is it an interviewer, a researcher, or is it actually an insight engine? I've been thinking about it, but I can't quite decide what Frank is.
I would say it's more of a, we call it the customer brain. So it's
Okay.
like it's like a brain of your customers, and then where you can dig in, ask questions, and it's like very close to the customers, right? So it's like
Mhm.
about simulating, talking to the customers all the time, whenever you need it, at what kind of scale, etc. It's never the interviewer. We never wanted it to be an interviewer itself, because it's so much more. And the AI interviews are just a way to collect really good data if you're utilizing them in the right way, right? And then it becomes a kind of system of records. It becomes a platform, and at the end of the day, it's something that helps you make better decisions, right? If it doesn't help you make better decision making, if it doesn't help you to grow, then we're not doing a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. And from your point of view, what is the biggest strength of Frank compared to the human UX researchers or interviewers? What do you think Frank does really, really well?
I mean, still, it always you're getting the best data when you use it as a complementary product, right? So you don't use it to kind of replace a function or replace a human judgment or human even moderation. It works great when you do it in conjunction with human decision makers, and use it as a complementary in many cases, and that's why we call it frank, because like the idea came from the notion that we noticed that people tend to be more frank with AI, and that's 100% true, because there are some, even especially in the sensitive topics and in topics where there is this a bit of a ethical kind of or pressure things, where you don't want to tell some extreme things on how bad of this product is, for example, right? And you're speaking to the CEO and you try to be nice, especially if there is some kind of relationship, etc. There is always a lot of biases in these kind of conversations. But with AI, there is no bias at all. So you try to be more honest, right? It's super scalable, so it's also more convenient in a sense that, with humans, you need the scheduling kind of hustle. You need to find appropriate timing, appropriate day, time, what works for both of you. But with AI, it's always there. If you want to make a kind of call whenever you have time, it's just super super convenient. We noticed that best of the insights are coming where teams are using it, um, using Frank to initially kind of surface the main directions, understand the main kind of directions on what things are going on, and then they have human interviewers or human moderators to go after it, and do another more deeper type of conversations, asking much deeper questions. So if you combine these both, you're getting much better data actually.
That's super powerful because when I was thinking about our conversation today, what kept coming on the back of my mind is how do we actually protect UX discipline in general and insights discipline not to be completely disconnected from the customer world, because for years we spent so much time and effort to actually try to know the customer, learn their pain points, empathize with them. So now, to some extent, there is this lurking danger in a way that we are outsourcing a little bit this intimate knowledge of the customer. So I was, thinking about this, and I wanted to get your perspective. So when you mentioned that you actually find the best quality of insights when Frank and the human interviewers work together, that gives me hope that the discipline is not going to lose the grip on what's going on with customers and the market.
I can give you a very controversial take on that actually.
Yeah,
and
please do. I want to
and
hear it.
so look, the biggest objection overall for these kind of technologies, at least what I'm getting, is that this would keep us far away from our customers, right? So it's something that customers won't appreciate. As you said, we used to talk to customers ourselves. It's not human. We don't want our customers to feel underappreciated because you're sending them these AI versions of ourselves instead of showing up in person, right?
Mhm.
And this tends to be the biggest objection on what I see on why companies are hesitant on using these kind of technologies. What happens after is really interesting. So we had a couple of very practical use cases where companies were very hesitant before for exactly this reason. And then afterwards, we had a call and they said, Narek, you know what? You won't believe, but it made us even closer to our customers than before. Because when we're listening to all these interviews, their pain points, their honest kind of feedback on what kind of bad job we were doing in different phases of our products, and they still like us, it kind of forced this kind of empathy and where we did follow-up calls. We tried to address their concerns, etc. And when I'm evaluating all these, it made us closer to our customers because now we understand them better. And this is a really interesting insight that I haven't thought about. And I believe this will become a mainstream in a sense that, it's not eliminating people. And, if you're a customer-centric company, it will make you even more customer-centric company. It comes down to the mission, down to the decision and the goals on how you want to use the technology, but it's basically an amplifier. It amplifies whatever values you have in the company, right? If you're customer centric, it will make you more customer centric. If you don't care it at all, then most probably, yeah, it will not make you anywhere better.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. AI is totally an amplifier for whatever you're doing, good or bad. And listening to you, I really appreciate drawing this alternative perspective, because this is an important point that we do need to think about and discuss much more openly. Because to my point, and from my perspective, if AI can elevate the quality of the research, I personally want to see two things. Indeed, the depth, as you rightly pointed out, to really seek these contradictions, so go beyond the shallow answers to dive deeper on the reasoning, what's behind, and more importantly, to challenge my own assumptions. Because usually, when you go in some sort of a research or discovery, it doesn't matter. You always have a hypothesis that you are bound to it, and it can hurt sometimes, because you begin to be biased, whether we like it or not. So challenging our own assumptions, I think it's super powerful, and I'm glad you share these examples. Do you have more of those that are happening right now that companies can learn, and those on the live stream could take away?
I mean, that's 100% true. I want to underline on what you were saying about the bias, and especially the CEO bias. I would bring the example on myself, right? I'm As a CEO, I love talking to customers. I love having a lot of calls, and I noticed that many times I try to kind of have this confirmation bias where I deviate without noticing the conversation in a way that I want to hear it, right? I We want to be likable. Everyone wants to kind of hear this appreciation of their ideas, etc., etc. With AI, you don't have these kind of things, and if you set up the goals in the right way, it will probe deeper. It will understand the contradictions. It will get better to get back to these contradictions and ask follow-up questions again. While with humans, sometimes you might feel the pressure or ethics that you don't need to go that much. So I notice it myself that if I uh, like compliment myself in many times with AI, I'm getting a better picture and better clarity of what's happening, rather than it's only kind of filtering through my eyes.
Yeah, sometimes it's uncomfortable to hear that we're doing something that it's not really good, or there are better ways. But that's the only way that you can indeed improve, if you are open to challenge your own assumption and then consider a better point of view, whether it comes from AI or another individual. In my opinion, doesn't matter, but somehow coming from AI kind of hits differently.
100%. Yeah, yeah, totally.
And I also wanted to ask you, because I totally see the value and the point of how AI can help us dig deeper and explore those hidden areas that potentially the insight resides. But on the flip side, how do you make sure that actually AI doesn't just take some level of insights and polish it and make this sleek report that it's totally misleading, and yet sounds confident and clean?
Yeah, that's a really big threat, I would say, especially with AI that is used in a wrong way, because AI also tends to amplify the bias, right? If you're putting a biased kind of goals, you'll not get a better results at the end of the day. So I mean, it all starts with the goals. It all starts with the decisions, and even we designed the platform in a way that you don't design the questions that much. You start with the decision making. What kind of decisions you want to make at the end of the day, right? And based on that, it tries to kind of support you. So basically, it has always in mind that this conversation and this overall study is to support this decision. It kind of it's pinned in their framework, and based on that, it always cross checks, like, will this question, if I ask to this participant, will this bring me closer to this decision making or not? And if yes, it kind of tries to give you a better picture on what's happening. So we noticed that this is very powerful in a sense that if you set up the goals in a correct way, and you set up the framework, it's basically trained in a way to follow the goals. It doesn't it doesn't make biases in a sense that if you train it in a bad way, yes, it may deviate in some areas, and it will be very hard to bring it back to the main topics, right? But we're calibrating it for all these times, and we have professional researchers, we have PhDs who are going and training the frameworks that we are using currently on how to stick to the goals and how to make the goals stick to the decision making. So with this hierarchy, you're getting a better answers. And to your point, the contradictions are good. We don't try to average the results and kind of use it as a one holistic, let's say, insight that people might need. We try to bring a lot of contradictions that are happening within the customers, and that's for good. We try to segment them. We try to give insights. We try to arise more hypotheses that needs to be kind of confirmed, and that's the beauty of all this.
And have you noticed any change in terms of how teams actually respond to that? Because on one side, as you notice, as you said, insights are moving not just as a informative platform, but as a decision-making tool. But my personal observation is that sometimes product teams are not ready to make those hard decisions that require evaluation of a trade-offs and then committing. uh, People for whatever reason like to keep options open, and that is hurting to large extent not just the product but also the business in general. What is your experience and observation? How are teams dealing with this decision making aspect?
I mean, it all comes to the culture in the company, right? So it's not a research function. It's more of a cultural environment on decision making. Are teams ready to be flexible? Are teams ready to face unconventional truth? Are they ready to hear something uncomfortable? If that's within the culture, then research and insight generations, AI, are helping them to be better and grow faster, right? If they are not, then nothing will help them. You will give them the absolutely best insights in the world, and if they are not ready to act upon, then it's becoming useless. And then from time to time, these companies are making layoffs, cutting their research departments with their research functions. But it's not about the research. With technology, research and insights are becoming embedded in every single area of the organization, right? If before it was a kind of a consolidated and centralized kind of functionality, now it's becoming embedded in every single part of the
Do you
organization.
mean that it's more distributed right now?
It's more distributed. The data access is becoming more possible to more of the teams, right? You can consolidate more data now, and basically, if you put it as a cultural thing, everybody in the organization can be very much aligned on their level and have access to kind of information that will help them make better decisions. So in that sense, the research is becoming a super universal function. And even if before research was kind of an enterprise type of a thing, where you would have specialized research departments, research experts, etc., and startups and scale ups, they wouldn't have anybody who would be in charge of doing research. Now AI is also challenging that notion as well. Now everybody can have their teams, everybody can have research, everybody can gather insights. It can become an autopilot. It can become kind of a very continuous process, aligning teams of a different departments. So in that sense, you couldn't say I didn't know this or I didn't know that. You uh, can pretty much be informed about the customer truth on what's happening outside of your company, and it all comes down to the notion on how much you're ready to face this truth. Some companies are ready, some companies are not ready, but that's the main thing that would differentiate the companies.
So to your point, certain excuses actually now disappear because we cannot say anymore we don't know or we can't talk to a
Exactly.
customer. But then what happens after? What happens once those excuses are no longer the bottleneck? Where do you think the bottleneck has shifted?
I mean, it shifted to the flexibility and to how quick you are to act on these insights, right? It all downs to the commitment, how committed you are. Of course, it comes from the leadership, and it becomes a company culture. But now with AI, we're reaching to this point that many experts are calling it singularity. It's basically a phase where you already are not able to predict on how quickly it will evolve, right? And what you can do, you cannot plan it anymore, like for 2 years, 3 years span, etc. What you can do is just be very agile, be very flexible, be very open-minded, be ready to face a lot of contradicting insights that are contradicting your own beliefs. And if you're ready to act, you'll survive. If no, then many small companies, many individuals will act on those insights, will come and then grow. And we're experiencing now this transformational huge change, this wave of change, where the only right thing is to be nimble, to be flexible, and be agile.
Mm. That's very true, but it's the hardest probably thing to do because the natural inclination is every time we think about research and insights, we start with a question. But as you rightly pointed, so it requires a real transformation to start with a decision and then stick to it because it's not only not good enough to even have a decision in mind, you have to be committed to do something about it and to be to make the hard calls ultimately at the end of the day, because if you're not prepared, then all of this effort is wasted.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
And I wanted to ask you, in your experience now that you've been working quite some time with Frank, what are the maybe top three tips that you have for companies that want to use AI to boost their insights and research capabilities? How should they start and what should they do?
Yeah. I don't know if it's three or maybe more or less, but I will repeat myself, but it's really at the end of the day, this is what I see that really helping some companies and some companies not, right? So those companies who are certain on what they want to learn and what they don't know, the more specific you are, the better data you're going to get, right? And the more vague you are, the AI is not going to help you. So if you're setting a very vague type of goals and you're not sure if these decisions are for the marketing, for the product, for the customer support, for the CEO, etc., etc., you're getting kind of a little bit of both, but it's not that deep that you can act upon. So we noticed that you need to be very focused. You need to be very specific. The cool thing is it's that it's very affordable and anybody in the company can use it, can define their goals, and you don't need to embed everything into one research campaign, right? You can make multiple, and get better data. Another thing is that you need to do it from time to time, so it needs to be continuous. Especially now in these days where things are changing so fast, you need to you don't have to do it once and then forget about it. If you are doing it continuously, then you'll get a better sense on the trends and better sense on on the consumer taste, on what's changing in consumers' minds, etc. And specifically for that, we're developing a couple of solutions which will be based on WhatsApp, so you can also follow up within the like people's WhatsApp, and then AI can make a kind of a natural conversation with them, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, I believe these couple of things are helping companies get better data, and sometimes it's also it's good to give AI a bit more flexibility. Uh, there are there are different ways on how you can set this up. If you want to control every single point and every single question and probing, etc., you can still do it. And if you're a professional researcher, you should do it, probably, if you understand this like really well. But if you're not a professional researcher and you would want to give AI a bit more of a flexibility, because we've trained it with the professional researchers, so it knows how to react, it knows how to kind of get back to the same questions, how to probe
Mhm.
deeper into the right time. So like we would just set up the goals and give it more flexibility, and then it will achieve its goals. So yeah.
Cool. And how about the research community themselves? What should they be doing these days other than working side by side with AI? Are there any areas that you specifically think, oh, this should be the next big skill or capability that researchers needs to embrace?
I mean, I think they like in any technology, or pretty much like in any industry, if you view this as a threat, it will become a threat. Indeed, it will be a threat, and indeed, it will take your job. It's very much true, right? If you face it like that. But the community and those researchers who are viewing this as an opportunity, and there's so much things are happening now in research industry, right? There is a lot of conversation about synthetic personas. There are a lot of conversation about this AI moderation, about
Empathy as well.
empathy, about synthesizing different themes, about getting different sources of data, combining them into ones. So super exciting. I mean, everybody should be very excited to just try it out, all these tools. There is no universal approach which is good, which is bad. I know there's a lot of there are a lot of sites on where the researchers are in different point of views across these different technologies. But the truth is that you need to try, and it all depends on the context, right? So these are different tools. You need to be able to use the right ones in the right place when you have the context. So now it's the best time to embrace new tools. Forget about all the kind of these notions of being super traditional, and having ways that are a bit of outdated, I would say. So there is no better time to be more open-minded, uh, even if all the logic and all your kind of brain cells, you don't believe something that this might work. At least you need to give it a try and look at the data, because you might be wrong.
Yeah,
uh, and
absolutely.
and also you need to bet on the future. The technology is evolving, like the frank is evolving. We're about 10% there, I would say, right? It's not working 100%. The technology is still in a very nascent phases. And if you're betting in the future, in 6 months, in a year, in 2 years, you would basically get a good feel on where all these things are going.
Mhm. Cool. I'm really excited about that. And I wanted to, for the last couple of minutes, in case we don't get a question, I wanted to ask you, but if our audience have a question, please, now is the time to send it in the chat and we can ask Narek to answer it. I wanted to ask you if you can think big and imagine Frank in a year time from now. What do you want Frank to do? Something that is as bold as you can make it.
I hope we can make it as bold as we can, as we're thinking about it to become. But in our minds, we view Frank as a coworker, as somebody from your team who has access to all these resources and can basically get things done very quickly. Can organize very complex set of activities and help you make better decisions. At the end of the day, that's what matters us the most. If we are helping companies grow, if we are helping them make better decisions, cut the risks, innovate more, then we're doing our job well. If not, then there is still a lot of things to improve. But at the end of the day, it's like your remote coworker, which is helping you make better decisions, and it's like your consigliere. You have seen this Godfather, so it's like your consigliere whom you can refer to anytime you have some hesitations, some questions, and it can gives you more evidence. Not a generic evidence like you would get from ChatGPT, more evidence grained in your customer truth, in your customer data, which you can validate all the time, but at the end of the day, it needs to help you grow.
One thing that I'll take away from me is this notion that you spoke about, that this is a customer brain, is not even an inside engine. And I hope that with customer brain on our shoulders, we no longer can ignore the truth, the customer truth, and we empathize more deeply, and we build more relevant products for the better of the society, and obviously for a company's growth and the business objectives. But more importantly, the users, every one of us, I think, could benefit greatly of such future. Is this how you're thinking about the future of insights?
That's the goal.
Okay, well, let's make it happen. And maybe in a year's time, we should have this conversation again just to see where Frank is. And maybe Frank can join us and be a participant. Why not?
Yes, we can have a joint call together.
Well, thank you so much, Narek. I totally appreciate your honesty and sharing your learnings and perspectives. We had a comment from Fori. Follerin saying that we've answered a lot of his questions that crossed his mind. So that's really positive. I totally appreciate taking the time this afternoon. So I wanted to thank you once again, and thanks for everyone who listened to LinkedIn Live and the AI Pressure Cooker. So stay tuned, and we'll get more exciting guests coming soon. Take care. Thank you.